We are having a reincarnation on Clubhouse, but right now we are reincarnating our live feed of the Not Your Average Investor Show, Thursday edition. We are live on Facebook. It's official. I am your host, Pablo Gonzalez. With me, as always, the guy with the genius concepts that they call GC, the guy that generates cash flow. He's a great co-host, and they call him GC because his name is Gregg Cohen. Say hello, Greg.
Hello, everybody. Great to be with you on this beautiful Thursday.
Great to be with you too, buddy. It is also great to be with our community on a Thursday. Hello, Leo. Hello, Nadeem. Welcome back. Hello, Lee. Hello, Rick Margwin. Welcome back. Eddie Harris from Atlanta, always checking in with his trademark. Jake is here early. Anthony Dida is here. John Henning. Love seeing names come and return and be here with us on Tuesdays, on Thursdays, but Thursday's special. Right? Thursday's like friends hanging out, talking real estate.
There we go, baby.
Which is a lot of fun. So as you know, this Thursday show, it's really about you, right? So two ways to interact with each other in the chat. And in order to do that is everybody that you see chatting right now, they have typed in the chat box, but first they changed that little blue button that's above where you type from panelists to hit a drop down and go to panelists and attendees. That way everybody can see what you're typing. You can communicate amongst yourselves. We already have 45 people on here. The majority of the people on here are educated real estate investors with a ton of value to give you. So if you're putting it in the chat, you're going to get some really, really great feedback. Second, if you want a question asked of the man JC himself, you use the Q&A button that's on the bottom right. You might have to hit those three buttons that say more and pop open the Q&A, and you put it in there, right? Like you put the questions in there. And the big difference is that you're going to see that chat moving a lot. The Q&A stays there right in front of my face. I can't miss it. It idiot proofs it for myself. And I make sure that I get it on. But I want to go back to this morning when I started calling you GC. And you told me something funny, right, Greg? Like now that GC is a thing, like let's give people some perspective on the GC thing.
You know, when we started working together, I asked you to describe kind of who you are, what you do, and you said, I'm the hype man. And I have never seen the hype man more in full display than totally creating this new moniker for me, which is incredible. There's really only one person in my life that I knew who called me GC prior to doing the Not Your Average Investor show. And that was my business partner, Adam Regal, and he just has always called me GC. Nobody else has called me GC in my entire life. But now I'm getting so many GCs every single day. I've adopted GC as my nickname. And so Pablo, you have brought this into the atmosphere and it's really sticking. I think repetition really helps. The more GCs you come up with, the more natural it feels. And I love it. So thank you all on the group for reaching out and calling me GC, and in the Facebook messages that I get, it's all titled to GC. You know what? That's me. It took 38 years for me to realize it.
I love it, man. That's generally crazy. GC. All right. So Lee Bishop, by the way, puts in the question and answer. Congratulations on being able to help out 100 tenants with $1,000. What an accomplishment. I think, I know you don't like to brag about the stuff. We always put it out after the fact, but we put out a pretty nice little video. Greg, why don't you tell people the backstory on that, and then we'll get into this property.
Absolutely. Well, thanks, Lee, for mentioning that. What we do here, and hopefully what everybody is here to do, is to use rental property investing as a tool to do a much greater amount of good than just simply making money off for property. That's how we've built our organization. It's about changing people's lives, is what we feel like we can do with this platform. And for you, that's the same thing that you can do with your rental property portfolio. So, every year we're looking for ways that we can make an impact. And one of the things that we saw this year was an opportunity to really make an impact in the lives of our residents beyond what we've done in the past. And so it was sort of a crazy idea at first. My business partner, Alex, was the first one to come up with it. And he said, why don't we do something really, really wonderful for our residents? And so we did. So what we did was we decided to donate $100,000 to our residents. I don't know of another property management company in the world who has ever done that, but that's what we decided to do. And so we donated $100,000. The way we did it is we asked our team to identify the residents that they felt were deserving and would be great recipients of this special thing. And then our team actually got to go and hand deliver the checks, $1,000 checks, to 100 residents. And to go there and to get that experience, to share this, it was done around the holidays. And we had a film crew there as well to just kind of document this. And I'll tell you, the first time that I saw the video, which we're now posting on our social channels, I don't know if it's been shared in the group yet. Has it been shared, Pablo? Did you see it in the group?
You know, I'm not 100% sure, man.
Yeah.
I've seen it. I don't know where I saw it is the thing, right? Like could have been.
It'll be coming soon. So if you're not a member of the group and you'd like to see more, go to JWB Facebook group, become a member, and then you'll be able to see it. But I'll tell you, I became teary-eyed when I saw the video. You get to see people's literal reaction of not understanding what is going on at first, and then asking repeatedly, "Are you for real? Are you for real? Are you really giving me $1,000?" And it was around the holidays, and we just had these incredible moments. And at the core of it, it's kind of why we're here. So, we're always trying to think of different ways to be able to change people's lives and make an impact. And this was a pretty special one.
I love it, man. Such an amazing thing to do. 100 grand, $1,000 on the holidays is so like no joke, right? Like when everybody's strapped for cash. I think it's awesome. Let's change some lives now with real estate education. First, I want to welcome a couple people that just chimed in the chat. Lou Carlson, welcome. Gene Ferreter, welcome. Good to have you here with us. If you want to change, Roger Evans, welcome. He just chimed in as well. If you want to change Lou and Gene, change your chat from panelists to panelists and attendees so that everybody can see it. Everybody can talk. But without further ado, the star of the show, the property of the week. And today's property is 2820 Callaway Circle. It generates over 10 estimated ROI and has extremely low property taxes, which allow for maximum property cash flow. I'm really working on my broadcaster voice. Have you noticed today?
You sound like a combination between Michael Buffer and the Micro Machines guy.
That's what I'm going for. All right. So let's go over the numbers, talk to our friend that's listening in the podcast right now. And it's in your ear. Purchase price of $119,000. It's in that zip code, that 32209 that we see come up so often. Estimated rent range between $825 to $875. It's a 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom house. At a 2 or 3 year lease. And again, what you're buying, right? The thing that we're really selling here, the cash producing asset, it has an estimated conventional financing total monthly cash flow of $168 and an estimated conventional total ROI of 10.07%. Greg, first of all, chime in the chat. Does it look good? I don't know if I optimized it for video sharing, so I might unshare it and reshare it just to make sure that it looks good. But I know we've had fuzzy issues in the past. But Greg, first thing I always ask you, man, what is that $168 per month? Talk to me about that. What does that include? What does it not?
Absolutely. And for anybody who's new to the show, thank you and welcome to the show here. There's 2 things that you want to look at first when evaluating a rental property. The first is your monthly cash flow. So monthly cash flow is one of the 5 profit centers of rental property investing. And it's a really important one. It's almost like the entrance to the game, or the entrance to the dance, is the way I kind of think about positive cash flow. Means making sure that this asset pays for itself every single month. So when you're looking at that $168 a month, that's the positive cash flow you're going to receive in your bank account on a normal month. That normal month means that the house is rented and you have your normal monthly expenses. And so the house being rented obviously is the income. The expenses that happen every single month, if this is a finance property, are your principal, your interest payments, your property taxes, and your property insurance costs, along with your monthly property management fees. And basically you net all of those things out of there. You take the expenses away from the income, and you'll be left with about $170 a month on this property.
There you go, Greg. So that, as somebody that is investing in a rental house for a rental income property for the first time myself, might be closing tomorrow. Not sure yet. Still trying to find out. But, I see that cash flow as, that is what I'm going to count on a monthly basis. That is most likely going to go into, for me, it's going to be a savings account because I want to buy more rental income properties. So that is that cash flow coming into your pocket that you can deposit and you can, use for your own needs, depending on how you did this thing. Talk to me about that ROI, that 10.07, right? So is that, I would assume that includes the monthly cash flow?
It does, and a whole lot more. It includes more of the positive things, more of the other profit centers. It also includes other expenses that will happen at some point. You just don't know when. So if you take that kind of that normal month, right? We started with rental income coming in. We subtracted your principal, interest, taxes, insurance, your management fees. Well, there's other fees that we need to take into account that don't happen, right? One of those fees would be tenant placement fees, right? The fee to put a new resident in your home is a fee. And so that fee, the full amount of that fee is included and basically decreases that return on investment. Some other things that decrease the return on investment would be expected maintenance costs and vacancy costs. Those decrease the return on investment. So you want to keep those in there because you want this to be something that you can actually hit your returns on investment. And many people do not include those three fees. So we include those there. We also include other profit centers that you may or may not be thinking about, like tax savings. So this is income tax savings. So you have these amazing tools to basically take advantage of how the IRS allows you to write off things when it comes to rental properties you just don't get in other asset classes. And so that equates to a real tax savings for you. And also principal pay down. So this would be your resident basically paying your rent to you every single month. And as a part of those expenses is your loan, is your principal amount on your loan is paid off every single month. It doesn't come from your pocket. It comes from your resident's pocket because your resident is making the payment for you and producing positive cash flow for you. And so this is what I call sneaky fun, right? This is one of those things where you're not going to feel it every single month in your bank account as far as your loan balance going down, but you're going to wake up in 5 years or 10 years and 15 years, and you're going to say, wow, that's really low, or maybe that's gone, depending on how your loan is set up. And that's why I think it's so sneaky fun. So it includes that profit center as well. And you take all those profit centers, all those negative items as well, you divide it by your initial investment, and that's how you get to that 10.07%.
I got you, Greg. Obviously, as is tradition here, the way that we teach this, I noticed that you left out one profit center, which is appreciation. That's at 0. We're going to explain that in a second, but we're going to stick true to what we said. We're going to answer questions out that we make sure that we're answering max questions. And we got, first up, Acacio Pereira asks, hello, GC. Regarding the tax, isn't the tax based on the assessment value? So this tax amount may be higher once the new owner purchases it? ?
Oh, Ocasio, and hopefully I pronounced that correct. You are incredible. That is actually one of the topics that we were going to lean into today and teach about. So Pablo, should we go into that right now?
Let's go into that right now, Greg.
All right, brother. So Ocasio
So Ocasio, you got him. I saw you tinkering around with the technology. I was gonna fill in for you.
Well, go for it. You're the hype guy.
I'm the hype guy. Listen, Acacio, you know what the difference between a good question and a great question is? Greg, do you know the difference?
I do not.
A great question is one that we have the answer for. And before the show, Greg's like, you know what? There's this thing about tax evaluations that other property management, other turnkey rental income property companies like to fool people with. So I kind of want to teach this. Do you think we have space for it? And boom, Acacio shows up asking the question. Greg, go for it.
Perfect. Okay. So let's go over to the property tax section so we can follow along on the evaluation here. And we'll kind of point out for those who may not be familiar with the question here. So you see property taxes here on line 26, right? Those are annual property taxes of $1,208. That's a really low property tax number. Now, generally, property taxes in Florida are lower than the national average for property taxes. And in Duval County, they're actually very low as well. And low property taxes are one reason why we're able to generate positive cash flow in Jacksonville, even though we are a market that appreciates at a higher rate than the national average. Like normally, if you're in a market that appreciates at a higher rate than the national average, then what you're going to see is higher property taxes because you have higher values and you don't see cash flow in those markets. So low property taxes are one reason why we're able to do that. Now, if you've been following along with the show, you've seen other properties here that have much higher property taxes than this one. Like $1,200 for property taxes for a year is really low, even within the JWB sphere of our properties. right? Another way of saying this is we can still make a property have positive cash flow, even if it has $3,500 a year in property taxes. So when we're looking at why is this asset really working well, and why are we able to produce that 10% return on investment? One of the reasons is because of low property taxes of only $1,200. Now, Ocasio's question is, and it's a very educated and savvy question. His question is, well, what is that $1,200 based off of? Because a common thing that real estate investors miss on is they misvalue what their property taxes are going to be. What they do is they look at last year's property taxes on the public record, and they don't account for the fact that those property taxes are going to go up. And what happens is, this is very common with other turnkey providers. They look at the last data point they have. They would put a much lower number for property taxes, because what that does is that increases your cash flow and that increases the rate of return, but they're underestimating it. So hopefully I kind of laid the foundation there. I'll tell you how we do it, Ocasio. So that $1,200 is actually not the property taxes for last year in 2020. And Pablo, I'm going to go ahead. I think I'm going to go ahead and share the screen here, because I think
control, Greg. Do it.
Yeah. All right.
They call him GC because he gains control.
So what I'm showing everybody, and Pablo, you can see this, right? It's coming across. Okay. All right. So what I'm showing everybody here is the Duval County Tax Collector's website. This is where you actually see what your property taxes are in Duval County, which is where Jacksonville is. I'm sure this is very common in your neck of the woods. It's all online now. And this is for 2020. So this was last year, the bill detail. And the property was 2820 Callaway Circle. All right, I'm live on the site right now. Anybody could do this. And so we're looking for 2020 year. What you're seeing here are how the taxes are calculated here. I'm going to point out a couple of different things. The way your taxes are calculated is a couple of things. You've got your assessed value, and then you've got your millage rate, and that determines what your real taxes are. And so in the year 2020, the taxes were comprised of an assessed value of $31,000, we'll call it. And the millage rates vary, but we'll call it a total millage rate of 17.6. I'll explain this a little bit more in a second. And ultimately, what the property taxes were in 2020 was $585 for this property at Callaway Circle. So putting this in context, another turnkey company very likely might have put property taxes at $600 or somewhere thereabout for the property valuation that I'm showing you here on Callaway, which we have bumped up to $1,200. All right. So we have, and Paulo, if you wouldn't mind, go ahead and show the evaluation again.
Got it.
So what we do is we use that data point for the most recent year, and then we know based on our experience that there is going to be a higher amount the following year. If you actually look in the formula bar up at the top there, yeah, you know where that is right there, where it's
formula bar across the top up here.
Yeah, exactly. So that's how that is calculated. There you go. Perfect. So you can see 585.83 was last year's property taxes. We then multiply that times 1.7%. We then take 70% of that and add that, an expected increase to property taxes. And then what we also do is include this $211. And we include these expenses. This $211, technically it's not a property tax. It's called a fee, but it is included on your taxes. Like if I went back to where I just was, you would have seen it there on that tax card. And at the end of the day, it's coming out of your cash flow. You have to pay it. It's like a tax. So we include that as well. That is something else that I do not see for other providers for little miscellaneous taxes that they have in their neck of the woods. So long way of saying, Ocasio, a fantastic question. This has already taken what you were concerned about into account so that we can accurately portray what property taxes are going to be when the house is reassessed.
There you go. They call him GC because he goes crazy when you talk taxes.
Income tax savings. I love. I don't love property taxes.
yeah, I know. Tax savings. I'll say it. I'll add to that one. You should see when we talk tax savings on our runs. It's impossible to keep up with this guy. So, Gregg, another great question in the chat, because we have the answer and we wanted to talk about it. Lee Bishop is asking, this is obviously a before picture due to painting required. And Anthony Dida says, hey, Gregg, I see the dumpster in the photo. Do you have other photos you can share with us, or tell us what has been done on the home?
Well, you guys don't think that this is the way that we show homes for rent? You guys don't think this is the normal standard operating procedure? No, of course, right? You guys, of course, this is a picture of the current state of the house on Callaway. And so Pablo and I thought this would be a great time to talk about how this property actually looks before JWB gets its hands on it. And then, of course, we can talk through maybe logistics if people have questions about how the renovation is done, when folks put properties under contract, when the home is rented, all of that good stuff. But if you are actually there right now at Callaway Circle, you're going to see what you see here. And most of the times, we're going to be able to put a picture up here as it's closer to the renovation, or if the house has already been renovated or built. So you see the after product. But I thought this would be great. This house is currently under renovations right now. And let's just show you exactly what the house looks like prior to JWB working our magic there. So JWB, of course, has already purchased this house on Callaway. We own this house. It's already with our renovation team. We've already done the necessary amount of scope. We've done our scope of work. We're obviously already starting to work on it because the dumpster is there. But at the same time, what we do is we make it available for clients to purchase generally about 30 days to maybe 45 days out from when the renovation should be completed. Paulo, any idea why we would choose 30 to 45 days?
Well, speaking from experience, that's about how long it's taken me to close my loan.
Yeah, there you go, right? Generally right now, even loans right now, because there's so much demand, and this is across the country because of low interest rates, there's so much demand that loans are taking longer to close right now. 45 days, 60 days is really very, very typical right now. And so what we are able to do is to go ahead, offer this to clients. We'll have the client who wants to purchase this home actually put the house under contract. So this one was available 2 days ago when I prepared this for the show. I heard this morning this one was actually put under contract within the last 2 days. But let's just say it was available, right? A client has just put this house under contract, or a client would put this house under contract. It's in this state right now. Now, JWB is on the hook to actually complete the renovation, which we do. And the client doesn't close on the house until the house has been completely renovated. Pablo, can you think of something that would prevent the closing actually happening if the house wasn't renovated before close?
No.
I didn't think you were going to know that one. You've known every single one. People are going to think all these questions are canned if I just throw out the softballs to you. So, all right, think about it from a bank's perspective, Pablo. Would a bank come in here and let's say that you were buying this house right now, Pablo, right? Would a bank allow you to put 20% down and buy this property right now?
No, probably not. Now that I'm not so much on the spot, I would guess if there was something like a safety issue, a livability issue, if the appraisal did not match, in current state, what I was going to get the loan for, I would kind of guess. All
of those things are true, right? It's kind of like two steps to this answer, right? The first thing you said, safety or general condition of the house. If the house needs a brand new roof and it needs electrical and it needs plumbing and it needs flooring and it needs a new, air conditioner, right? Everything that this house needs, a bank, no matter what your credit score is, Pablo, no matter what percentage you want to put down on the house, no matter what the appraised value actually would come in, they're out of it. They're not going to lend on this product. They're not going to. So it would be impossible for the person who's buying this house, if they were buying with financing, to actually complete the process of buying it because the bank would just simply not do it. Now, there's no problem with putting it under contract, but the house has to be in great shape. It can't have any of those major issues by the time the appraisal comes. And so we take advantage of those 30 or 45 days to the point where we know that our renovation is going to be done by the time that the appraisal is ready, and that the experience for the client who's purchasing the home is wonderful because there's no delays due to the renovation. There's no delays due to the financing component of it. It just works well. And we're just taking advantage of 30 to 45 days. Otherwise, that it would sit there.
All right. So it has a lot to do with what Lease calls the GC, the general condition.
General conditions. That's right. And then the second step to it is what you mentioned, the appraisal. After it's in that condition of a great rental home, I looked at the numbers on the renovation on this one. Actually, our budget is $44,000 on this house, which is a lot of money to put into a house that is less than 1,000 square feet. So, and we can certainly go into what we're doing on the house, but there's a lot of work that's going into this house. Once it gets to that condition, then the appraisal comes into play, and the appraisal must match the sales price. So the sales price is $119,000. That's the second step of it. The appraisal must match the sales price. And then at that point, then the lender, of course, will close the loan at that point.
Boom. A remodeling to sell a house 101 right there. I like it, man. All right. We got another question. Acacio Pereira asks again, can you also talk about what's going on in zip code 32209?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is a zip code that we like most parts of 32209 for investing in turnkey rental properties. To be quite honest, there are some parts of 32209 that we don't, that we won't be purchasing cash flow investment properties and selling to clients. But this is in a neighborhood that we do. And this actually, Pablo, this isn't far from your house. Your house is in 32209. I don't know if you know that, but
yeah, I may or may not know that.
The house that Pablo is closing on, hopefully this week or very soon here, is just up the road here. So what you're finding in 32209 is it's a below middle income neighborhood, which is where that is the sweet spot that you want to be in for cash flow positive rental properties in a growth market like Jacksonville. And so the numbers in the 32209 zip code are where we want to be. You can see here, purchase prices are really low. $119,000 for a purchase price is about the lowest that you're going to see. Rents are strong enough. Even though the purchase prices are low, rents are really strong. There's strong rental demand there. And that's what allows us to, of course, have positive cash flow and that 10% return, not including home price appreciation. So it meets the criteria there. Does it meet the standard for where we want to manage the home? Absolutely. That's the next standard for us. I mentioned there are other parts of 32209 or some parts of 32206. And as you get kind of more around the downtown area that we will not go to, even though prices are really low, rents are really high, we're still not going there because it doesn't meet the standard for where we want to manage your home. Crime is too high. Turnover is too high. Maintenance costs are too high. And we're not going to put our team in a position to go and manage homes in those areas. So that is not what we see here on Callaway. It's in a part of 32209 that we like. Have a lot of experience there. But I would imagine maybe the question might be coming from a place of, I see low school ratings in this area. I see low prices. Some of those factors may have kind of prompted the question. I would say low school ratings are definitely here in 32209, just like they are in our other neighborhoods in 32208 and 32210 and whatnot. It's a part of the game of investing in cash flow positive neighborhoods to be investing in below middle income neighborhoods. And, it's just a reality. You have to be okay with it. Many people say I would like to have really great school ratings. And I would too, but I'm not willing to sacrifice positive cash flow to do it. And if I have to choose, I'm going to choose positive cash flow in a decent working class neighborhood with strong management in place all day, every day. That's what I would recommend. And a lot of people say, well, I want high school ratings because they've read it online or they feel better about it or whatnot. And at the core of it, your job as an investor is to produce your best return on investment. And when it comes to cash flow and returns on investment from rental income, the strongest correlation for you to actually achieving your desired rate of return is how long is your resident staying in the home. And people attach a correlation to a really above average school district to a resident stay. And that's not directly correlated. It's really not. What JWB has made our business to do is to work in neighborhoods that have below average school ratings and achieve really long resident stays. And we do that by signing long-term leases and renewing over 70% of our contracts that come up for renewal with our leases. They're renewed. And at the end of the day, we're able to achieve an average duration of resident stay of 54 months. So for those who that may be kind of a new message, I hope you can kind of, I try to be very transparent and real. You just got to be okay with investing in below average schools if this is going to be right for you. But hopefully you can kind of see that it's another, you have to find another angle to get long-term resident stays. You just can't rely on great school districts is kind of the approach.
Awesome, Gregg. And I thought about the beginning of the show. I did not talk about our JWBPassiveGuide.com, the passive investment guide that we have to offer, that if you go to JWBPassiveGuide.com, you can download this spreadsheet, not with this house on it, but you can download a spreadsheet that shows you how you can mess around with the numbers, kind of like we're going to do here in a second. So I highly recommend anybody that wants a guide on growing passive income and a template for measuring investments. I highly recommend you go to JWBPassiveGuide.com. And then the other thing I want to say is next week we are bringing on a community leader who was a CEO from a very high profile company that made it from Jacksonville to national prominence. He's since sold his company and now he's a leader in leading education reform here in Jacksonville. So if the school district thing is your conversation, next week we're going to talk plenty about that. So just teasing that out. We'll talk about that a little bit later. The other thing I want to say, Gregg, is I'm glad we went straight into the questions, man, because now we got like 7 more questions to go. And I like that we've gone into this format of just going straight into it, right? So let's get into it. Raja Bontu asks, what is the average rent per month across your portfolio? What is the average house price across your portfolio? What is the typical configuration of the rental property? 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom, 4-bedroom, 3-bathroom, et cetera. You want to give some kind of like typical stats there, Gregg?
Yeah, absolutely. Average rents are about $1,200 for our portfolio. That's coming from the 3,600 homes that we manage. Now, a better question as far as pricing is more about what current pricing is in Jacksonville's market. Some of those properties were purchased 50 years ago, 30 years ago, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, as we've managed those properties for investors over the years. So as far as pricing today, you're looking at pricing generally being about $150,000 to $210,000 for a turnkey rental property in a neighborhood like Callaway, right? In a neighborhood that is below middle income, with low prices, high rents, in a neighborhood that we're going to manage your home. And so $150,000 to $210,000 is about what the market is bearing right now. As you can see here, $119,000 for Callaway is way low. It's definitely on the low side. And then I think the last question was typical layout for a home. 3-bedroom, 1-bath, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 4-bedroom, 2 baths, even 5-bedroom, 2 baths every once in a while would be probably that's 90. I'm ballparking this. This is not scientific, but 95% of our inventory falls in line with what I just said there.
Did I catch a 9er there, Gregg?
There you go.
All right.
I haven't had a Tommy Boy reference in a while, so thank you.
Right. It's been a minute. There's a question here in the Q&A from Zim and Igna that says, what is 70%? I feel like maybe that was contextual to something that we were talking about. Ziman, if you want to put it in the chat, kind of what you were talking about when you asked that question, we'll do it again.
I know what he's talking about.
Oh, you do?
Yeah. So he was talking about why did we choose 70% as a way to bump up the expected property taxes? If you remember, the way that we calculate the expected property taxes for this property is we take last year's property taxes and then we add 70% of last year's taxes to create this year's taxes. So we are estimating a huge bump in the taxes. That's just based on our experience. So we have the benefit because we do this over and over and over again in the same neighborhoods. We sell the same properties in the same neighborhoods, many times a couple of streets over. And so we're able to see what are those reassessed for last year. And we're able to see kind of like a leading indicator for what property taxes will most likely be reassessed for this property here on Callaway come 2021.
All right. There you go, man. Good answer. I have a Noemi Gonzalez in the chat. Noemi, I'm gonna ask you if you can put the questions in the Q&A, and if you can change your settings in your chat from panelists to all panelists and attendees, so everybody can see you. That would be a really, really good favor you could do us. But because we have the same last name, you must be my cousin. So I'm gonna just rush your question here to the front. Noemi Gonzalez asks, I have a question about an appraisal that is lower than the asking price for about 15K. Should my friend go for it if the cash flow is good?
Well, let's first start off by talking about appraisals, really. Okay. An appraisal is something that a lot of people put a lot of weight in, and we should. It's there to protect your investment. But an appraiser is a human being, just who uses the best data they have. And sometimes sometimes they don't have much data to go on. Sometimes they just make mistakes. And so, a lot of people, especially for rental property investors who may be out of state, they put a lot of weight in the appraisal. The appraisal really is there to justify the sales price. That's why if you look at actually how appraisals come in on properties, and I'm taking this across all of real estate, the overwhelming majority come in for the appraised value at exactly what the contract price is, right? Does that mean that every person out there actually sold the property for exactly what the real market value is across the entire landscape of real estate? No, right? But what appraisers do is they justify the sales price to the lender, right? The lender wants to make sure that at least that value is there. And then an appraiser is going to justify the sales price there, right? So don't be surprised when you are getting an appraisal on a property that it's most likely going to come in at the sales price, assuming that there is good data and good comparable sales for the appraiser to use. We've seen appraisals come in way high. And sometimes clients say, wow, I created all this equity right off the bat, right? I came in $5,000 higher than our sales price, or $10,000 higher than our sales price. And we kind of point out to the client, I really wouldn't get that excited. It's not really, in our estimation, like you walked in with $5,000 of equity or $10,000 of equity. We know the market and we know what other things are selling for, again, because we do this in a relatively small area. So it would be our opinion that appraisal probably is not really $5,000 or $10,000 higher than the market value for them. That would be our opinion. And maybe the truth is somewhere in between, but I wouldn't put too much stock in it if you get a much higher appraisal. On the other side, it can happen that you can get a low appraisal for your property. Does that mean that your value of your property is not there? Not necessarily, right? Sometimes you need to give it a couple of shots with a couple of different appraisals to see really where the real market value is. Now, I'll tell you another thing that many turnkey rental properties rental property providers across the country do is they sell their properties at a price that is higher than the appraised value. And I think that's where this question is coming from. And they will justify it based on the return on investment from the cash flows being so high, even when your purchase price is higher than what it appraised for, that you're buying it off the income stream, and that is a good deal. I don't disagree with the premise in a sense, right? I think you should be buying this based on your return on investment. And I think you could make an argument that you would still get a great return on investment if you bought it with strong cash flows and the appraisal came in a little bit lower. But we don't do that at JWB. Our sales price has to match the appraised value. Because, and I think you could justify it the other way like many other turnkey companies do, but why, right? We just don't do that, right? It is such a commonly held belief out there in the marketplace that the people don't want to buy a property pay more than it appraised for. Like, why fight that battle for us? So at JWB, our sales price matches our appraised value. Now, if there's a low appraisal, we're going to give it a couple of shots. And we talked through this. We talked through this with you, Pablo, right? When we were talking about putting you under contract. This is the normal ways that we would prepare clients. Almost without exception, the appraisal comes in right at value. Very rarely does it come in below value for JWB. But when it does, we go forward with another appraisal. And almost without exception, the value comes in then, right? So for your specific example, I would really think long and hard about paying more than the appraised value. What I would probably do is give it another shot with the appraisal. For JWB, the way we would handle it is we would pay for your appraisal the second time around. So there's no additional out-of-pocket cost. So what I would do is I would do that. I would go back to however you're buying the property and go forward with a second appraisal. And that other person you're buying it from, if you have a relationship with them, they should probably cover the cost of that for you too, before you just go in and spend the money just because you're in love with the numbers.
Makes a lot of sense. So just to give my perspective as a consumer, right? Like I do remember you letting me know, hey, the next couple steps are going to be like this. You're going to get an appraisal. Doesn't mean that it's going to come in at the right, like at the right thing. If it does, we'll do it again, right? Like you kind of set those expectations for me going in. Now my appraisal came in like $3-4 grand above the purchase price, to which I high-fived Marta, but now I know that I got to take that high five back. It's no big deal.
Sorry.
And then the other side of it just sounds psychologically, man, as a marketer, like obviously I don't know how I personally would feel about being offered something that's like, no, this is really the price. Really, you should think about it like this when the market says otherwise, right? Like, I don't know why you would want to set that expectation for somebody. And I don't know how I'd feel about somebody really force feeding that. I mean, so I'm just thinking about it as a consumer makes sense to me to get another appraisal and just figure it out. Right.
Absolutely.
Cool. All right. Terry Parkin has a question. For the estimated maintenance, what assumptions do you use? And I'm going to share it again on the screen here for you, Gregg.
Absolutely. Thank you for the question, Terry. So your assumptions as far as maintenance and vacancy are incredibly important to setting the right expectations for yourself so that you can then hit those expectations, or you can hold your property management team accountable. Most turnkey rental property companies or property management companies out there use sort of boilerplate template expectations when it comes to maintenance and vacancy cost. But if you actually ask them how they got those, they don't have data to support it. So it's unfortunate because a lot of times they'll use low ones that will make their returns look better on an evaluation like this, which will end up hurting you in the long run because they just simply can't hit them, or they have no documented evidence that they've ever hit them. And that's unfortunately why most people have a poor taste in their mouth when it comes to rental property investing. So for JWB, our vacancy rate is 3% for renovated homes that are on city sewer. Our maintenance rate is 6%. And when I say 3 or 6%, what I'm doing is I'm taking the annual rental income and then multiplying it times 3% or 6%. And that's the amount that you should plan to spend every single year on average in either lost rent, which would be vacancy, or maintenance costs. We all know what maintenance costs are. And that can vary. For new construction homes, it's actually lower for maintenance cost. It's actually 4%, because generally speaking, new construction homes are going to have slightly less maintenance. But what you'll see very common across the industry is 5% for maintenance cost and 5% for vacancy cost. And everybody just sort of uses it. I've yet to see another provider that's actually tracked their data. We've tracked all of our data since 2011 across over 2,000 properties that we have sold to clients and continue to manage. And so we actually pull those numbers and look at them every single month. And that's how we formulate the assumptions. And that's important because we want to show up later on and actually hit those numbers for you so that you come back, you buy more houses, you refer your friends and your family, and we help you accomplish the goals.
There you go. The advantage of dealing with somebody with such a wide data range, right? Like to me, so much of the value in, working with JWB comes in the fact that you are an inch wide, a mile deep, and you have this like real life data that you base your assumptions on, not just, hey, Dallas market looks good, let's go buy a couple of houses over there and sell them to people because we know how to do it, right?
Exactly.
Mike Foster asks, for taxes, you should also mention how JWB increases the estimated property tax each year in the analysis tabs of the spreadsheet. That way, future estimated property tax increases are also accounted for in the calculated ROI. I think Mike covered it for us.
Yeah, exactly. If you want to point it out there, because everybody can get this exact property evaluation, that you can use to evaluate your own properties, whatever market you're in. I would highly recommend that. You can get that at jwbpassiveguide.com. You'll get this, and it actually increases your property tax burden in future years, which is definitely what we would expect in Jacksonville, because we do expect property values to go up in future years. So Pablo, if you would go to the analysis conventional financing tab.
Going.
We're there. Whole lot of numbers here. If you'll zoom in to maybe lines 12 through 15, rows 12 through 15 there. Yeah, there we go. And then you'll see these assumptions. Annual revenue increase would be rents increasing. We are way low on the assumptions of what rents are going to increase. 1% is a lot lower than what is actually happening because we're conservative. Operating expenses increase is what Mike Foster was just talking about. So operating expenses would be, part of that would be your property taxes. So we have built in that those are going up 3% a year. And then appreciation right now says 0%. Obviously you can adjust that. The historical appreciation rate in Jacksonville is actually 4.3%. And then the estimated tax bracket there of 30%, that helps you figure out what your tax savings are, which is one of your profit centers as well. But any of that is adjustable for everybody.
Gregg, you've mentioned, I think it's time to teach our usual lesson here. And I'm gonna bring it in the realm of, you've mentioned a couple of times how conservative you are. I know that you guys live by core values. Your number one core value, while you and me were on a run a couple of weeks ago, and I was trying to set the core values for my company, you told me that your number one is to under promise and over deliver, because it creates a great customer experience no matter what, right? So like if you can over promise on that. So I bring that up in the sense that you have set appreciation rate here at 0. You've set it in that spreadsheet at 0. Why don't you talk people through what it is, why you set it at 0, and then let's show them what it can be as long as it goes into historical appreciation.
Yeah, absolutely. I find that many people don't really understand how to evaluate home price appreciation. If we give some context to it, I started to invest in 2006 when the market was on fire. And in 2006, everybody thought it was impossible for home prices to go down. And so everybody went to the wrong side of the equation here as far as thinking that home prices always go up year after year after year after year after year, right? And then 2008 happened. And the crash happened, and values from 2008 to 2011 dropped over 35%. And they had never seen anything like this. And so then, since then, investors have been going off the deep end the other way. And they say, you know what? I don't ever want to evaluate home price appreciation in my rental property investment. My belief is that we should be in the middle here because, and there's data to support this, the right way to look at home price appreciation is over market cycles, right? So for the 2006 and prior investors who thought that home values do go up, they're right. It goes up over market cycles. They go up. And actually, as you look back to the previous cycles, you'll see a historical home price appreciation rate. And if you look over future cycles, your future cycle home price appreciation rate is going to be very similar to what the past cycles were. So it's almost like having the answers to the test of what your home price appreciation on average is going to be for your marketplace, because you've seen what has happened over cycles in the past. Supply and demand, it repeats itself. And that's what happens in real estate. All right. But they're not all right. In fact, they're pretty wrong about some things, because home price appreciation does not happen year over year over year over year like they were thinking, right? The middle approach, and the way that history shows us is the right approach, is that you have to be a buy and hold investor for a full market cycle to truly count on home price appreciation. Because again, if you look at past cycles and you look at 10, 15, 20-year segments, you're going to see very similar home price appreciation rates to what the historical home price appreciation rate is. So to put some numbers to it, in Jacksonville, if you go back to 1991, our average home price appreciation rate per year is 4.3%. Across the US, across that same timeline, it's 3.6%. So when we say that Jacksonville is a growth market, that's what we mean. We mean that historically, over a 30-year time span, Jacksonville has appreciated. The number is actually 19% more than the national average. That's a growth market. Okay. For rental property investing, typically you don't get the opportunity to get positive cash flow in a growth market. If you look at some of these other markets here, Cleveland, Memphis, Birmingham, Kansas City, these are all great cash flow markets. But when you look and compare what has their historical home price appreciation been, it's not higher than the national average. Jacksonville is the only market that I've seen that has higher home price appreciation than the national average and cash flow is as strong as we have. That's why I invest here. So, but the caveat is that if you want to evaluate home price appreciation, you have to be a buy and hold investor. You have to be in for a full market cycle, which is between 10 to 20 years. So Pablo, to your question here, why do we put 0% right off the bat for our evaluations here? For one of the reasons, it's because we like to underpromise and overdeliver. That's one of our core values. Another reason is I don't know if you're going to listen to me. I don't know if you're going to invest for a full market cycle when you own your rental property. And if you're only investing for 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, I don't think you should be counting on home price appreciation because I find it to be speculative because that's what the data supports. So if you are that type of investor who wants to buy and hold a portfolio, then you can count on home price appreciation and put it into your evaluations like I think we're about to do right now, Pablo, right?
Boom. From 10.07 to 25.71% when you bring in home price appreciation over the long term.
And why has that jumped up so much, Pablo? Do your best GC impression.
This one I've learned. This is the power of leverage, right? So the idea that if you're putting 25% down on a property, you're buying a property that's $119,000, you're not just getting appreciation on that 25% you put down. You're getting appreciation on the 25% that you put down plus the rest of the property. So you can basically multiply that appreciation by 4 based on the leverage that you're getting.
Exactly. If anybody wants to follow along at home, literally, let's assume that you buy a $100,000 property that at home appreciates at a 4% rate. That means you earned $4,000 from the appreciation. But like Pablo was talking about, if you use leverage and you only put 25% down, you only put $25,000 down. So if you want to follow along at home in your phone calculator, right, put $4,000 and divide it by 25,000 and see what you get. You're going to get 16%. That's your return on investment from the home price appreciation when you use leverage. And so prior to this little exercise right here, it said, roughly about 10% returns from the other profit centers. Roughly here is a 16% bump when we include home price appreciation. And that's how we get over 20% returns when you evaluate all profit centers for this rental property.
There you go. The surprise at the end. Gregg, let's try to knock out 1 or 2 more questions before we get out of here at 1:30. What do you think?
Love it.
All right. Sepide Aria Sandy or Sand. I hope I'm getting at least one of those right. How about your cash buyer? Should we get an appraisal before a cash purchase?
Great question, Sepide. You do not have to. Many clients don't based on our working relationship and the fact that we can show them what the comparable sales are. So you don't have to. We don't require it. You can if you want. It'll just be an expense for you. So we're happy to do it either way.
All right. And is back. Anus Attende is asking, is it true that a non-recourse loan does not require an appraisal?
So that's a great question too. So not all non-recourse loans require appraisals. Some do, some don't. Some do not require appraisals based on the relationship with the property management company. So for example, we have one relationship, they do not require an appraisal. And they do that. They basically take more risk when a bank doesn't require an appraisal. It's kind of unheard of for most lending institutions, right? For anybody who's bought their personal house and used a bank loan, you definitely got an appraisal. So the fact that a non-recourse lender would not require an appraisal is actually them taking on more risk. They would only do that if they have an incredible amount of understanding and an incredibly strong relationship with the selling entity or the property manager, of which JWB is. And so we have a relationship with them and they basically say, hey, listen, JWB, to make it easy on your clients, I'm going to go ahead and not require an appraisal. And I'm going to take on that additional risk, even though I'm going to be lending money on the loan. So it's not a requirement for some non-recourse lenders, but there are certainly some that do require it.
There you go. Zimin Gna asks, what is the average number of vacant days needed to acquire a new tenant when previous lease is terminated? And what is the average duration of leases with JWB? I think GC mentioned that at one point.
Yes. So average duration of initial lease is either a 2-year or a 3-year lease. We then renew 71% is our most recent stat from last year. We renewed 71% of our leases that came up for renewal. We continue to do that and do that. So what that eventually equates to is an average duration of resident stay here at JWB of 54 months. So those are the numbers there. There were a couple other questions there. I think, did I nail them all?
I can go back to it. You said it was you answered the average duration and the average number of vacant days. Like, I guess that is how quickly you turn properties over.
Yes. So when this client who's buying this home here on Callaway for a purchase, you shouldn't expect any vacancy right off the bat, right? This is going to be cash flow positive from day one. So for any purchases, you should not expect that. Now, at some point, the home is going to turn over, a resident is going to leave, and we'll do the property turn for you. You should expect, all in all, probably about 2 months of not collecting rent. And that's basically broken down to 40 days from what we call market to move-in. Okay. So 40 days from the time that it hits the market for rent to the time when that resident is moving in. And there's usually about 2 weeks prior to that for us to do the scope of work, for us to do the renovation, for us to then get it ready to put back on the market. So call it somewhere 50 to 60 days is our average.
Okay, there you go. Zimin Gna also asks, GC mentioned its expected increase for the next year. Is it really that much? I don't remember what number we were talking about.
I think I think he's talking about the 70% figure. So okay. I would imagine that's probably it. So yeah, I mean, that's real. And
that's data.
Yeah. I mean, I wish it was less. It would make our numbers look even better. But that's real. And I think that probably reflects what a lot of people are kind of surprised at. Unfortunately, many people buy the house from another turnkey provider or themselves, and then they find out the hard way that the numbers, aren't exactly what they thought there. So I hope that's not the case for you.
All right, Gregg, another great Thursday, another great group of questions. Wonderful that our community shows out in spades, brand new people coming in with awesome questions for you to contextualize. We never take it for granted. The idea that 60 people take an hour of their Thursday, middle of the week, to just come and hang out with us, get educated on real estate. It's a major, filler of validation that we're putting out some value out there. And it really wouldn't happen if you weren't here. So thank you so much for being here. I want to invite you to join our Facebook group. It's got 2,200 other real estate investors in there, a lot of collective knowledge in there. Just go to jwbfacebookgroup.com. I would invite you to download this property appraisal sheet as well. Go to jwbpassiveguide.com. It's going to help you assess any kind of deal that you're going to, look by anybody else. So you don't get hoodwinked, all the different things that Gregg just showed. And join us on Tuesday, right? If you want to get into that school discussion, right? Every once in a while, most of the time we're talking real estate. Every once in a while, we're talking about Jacksonville leadership, so that that the reason why we underpromise and overdeliver is because we live in an extraordinary community with amazing leaders with a great eye on the future. So, come meet Gary Chartrand. He is actually Alex Safakis' idol from everything that I understand. So that's something that needs to happen, right? We need to talk to that guy. But I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart, and I'll leave it up to Gregg for final words here.
Likewise, brother. I can't believe it's 1:30 already on a Thursday. I mean, literally, this is a highlight for Pablo and I, the Tuesday show, the Thursday show. Tuesdays are always a lot of fun, but Thursdays just have this feeling of just kind of the gang hanging out. So thank you all for making it so fun. Incredible questions. Thank you to all the new folks, hearing a ton of new names every single week now with incredible questions. You make this show better and better and better, and you bring a lot of value to everybody else who's probably asking similar questions. So thank you all. I really look forward to seeing you more in the group. And if I could ask one thing, when you do join the group, bring some of these questions up to the group, because sometimes, these questions, kind of get siloed here. People don't always watch the show for a full hour or whatnot. But if you have a similar question, you put that on the group, you're going to get a ton of really great responses. And I personally, I'd love to see that happen more and more. So if I can make a plea to ask you guys to continue to do that and to bring those questions to the group, I think it would be really well received. And with that, on to the next one, brother. We'll see everybody on Tuesday. Thank you, everybody.
Adios.